I I had an appointment yesterday to go and play golf with friends of mine. So I said to them, I'll meet them there at 2. And they said, whoa, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, let's make it 4 o'clock. I say, no, man, I can do 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm going to do 18 holes. I said, but I will come past the pro shop again at 4 o'clock. Then if you want to only play 9 holes, then I'll pick you up at 4 o'clock. So I arrived at the golf course 2 o'clock yesterday. And by 6 o'clock the evening when I arrived at the G's restaurant, I was hovering between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. This morning at 3 o'clock when I woke up, I couldn't speak. And then I realized that my tongue is attached to my palate. And I won't be able to say my last words to Charlotte. So, and then at about 3:30, I thought, how am I going to get myself down to my room so that I can put a drip up for myself? And then, luckily, I'm here today after a lot of liters of water. But I decided now I'll put myself in self-isolation until 4 o'clock every afternoon until next year in March, in a place where there's an air conditioner. I'm really now afraid of AC. Right, I'm going to speak to you today about a conversation I had with Gary last week after the sermon. So I said to Gary, I've been watching White River, the congregation Church Unlimited in White River, and it's incredible to see they're expanding now. They're bursting out of the seams, and you can clearly see the Lord's blessing is on White River. And then I said to him, so you started off a few years ago, you started the church there, and now you see, well, Rudolph came and then it grew, but now, you can just see multiplication going on. Isn't that difficult for you? Because I'm sure when you started that church, you had this in mind, the multiplication that's currently going on there. And he said to me, no, for him, he was a church planter. And when he was a church planter, he had a lot of frustrations at that time because the church didn't grow as fast as he wanted it to grow. And then he listened to a teaching from Tyron Daniels. And in that teaching, Tyron said that a church goes through 3 stages. It goes through the Moses stage, then it goes through the Joshua stage, and eventually through the David stage. Where the Moses stage is where you go from slavery out into freedom. So it's about redemption through the blood of the Lamb. And then you get to the Joshua stage, and that's about taking your inheritance. And then lastly, it's the David stage and the kings, where you just get expansion of the kingdom. And he said to me, and that then helped him to know in the season that he was in, and that was the Moses season, that he must just be trustworthy for that season and prepare the church for the next season. And I went and sat and this whole week and thought about it. And then I realized, that we are also in the Moses season. And then I go and look at the Moses season, because if we are now in the Moses season, then we must prepare the church to go into the Joshua season. I went and read in Joshua 3, and where the Israelites stood in front of the Jordan River, and then they went through the Jordan River, and the Jordan River parted, and then while they went through, Joshua said to 12 men, one of each tribe, go and gather a stone, and when we get through the Jordan River, I want you to put the stones down there, so that every time that you walk past here, that you can tell your children about the Lord that led you into Canaan through a flooded river. And then I realized, the end of the Moses season or the Moses stage is right before the flooded Jordan River. And for that season now, we as a church have to go and prepare ourselves so that we can prepare this congregation to be able to stand in front of a flooded river and then to go into the next stage. So I then looked at what is needed in this season. So there's two things that's needed for us now in the season where we are. The one is to establish a culture, and the other one is to develop leaders. So I want to start off with establishing a culture. So a culture is ideas, customs, and social behavior that will define us. So when people look at us, they will get a certain picture of us and say, this is what Church Unlimited is. And for the culture to develop, there's a few things that we must now know. We have to start a culture. We have to start the culture like when the Israelites came out of Egypt. When they were in Egypt, they weren't called the Israelites. They were the Hebrews, or the 12 tribes of Israel. They weren't a nation. But then when they went through the Red Sea and went into the wilderness or the desert, there they became the nation of Israel. And this is what needs to happen now. We need to become the Church of Hazyview. And we need to establish a culture now. So what is our culture? So that you can know when the people look at us, this is what we stand for. And the first one is, again, we want to develop a healthy church. And this is Ephesians 4, verse 1 to 16. I've mentioned it a few times. But this is where we're aiming at, a healthy church. And that healthy church has got 3 pillars. The one is love, the other one is functioning, and the third one is unity. So for this season, for us to be faithful in this season, this is what we're going to spend time in until we can go into the second phase, into the Joshua phase. So we're going to establish a healthy church, and this is where we're going to put our efforts in the next few months, maybe years. Don't know when the second stage will come, but we need to lay the foundations now in this season. So the second thing is, we look at the vision of the church. So first of all, we say a healthy church, and then we go and look at the vision of the church. So we're going to hand out to every one of you a little booklet that we say it's a DNA, what you need to know of Church Unlimited. So this is for the generic Church Unlimited, from Nelspruit, for us, for White River, and for Kobus. And this is what we believe. And I would just like to share with you the vision which we have as a communal group. Firstly, to see the church continue to grow and develop. It's on page 4, for you who have got the booklet. Firstly, to see the church continue to grow and develop as a strong and healthy local church. The second one is to train, encourage, and release all believers to grow to their full potential and maturity in God. Third, to nurture and release leaders to be skillful shepherds, ministering with integrity of heart, to disciple the nations of the world. This includes reaching out into our own community in real and relevant ways to reveal the love of God to our neighbors. It also includes being involved in Jesus' commissions beyond the borders of our own city, and to support and plant New Testament churches, and lastly, to build a strong base church to serve the Lowveld area. So a healthy church, I set aside the vision, and this is where we're aiming at. This is our target, not only for this season, but this will be the target for every season that this church will go through, is the vision that I just read to you. And then the third thing is, you have to go and look at the prophetic words that came out to us over the last few years. And the first one I would like to share with you is a word that Rudolph brought when we moved over into this hall. And that word was that we as a church will become a lampstand. We will become a lampstand and a light for the community. The second thing is, Carla then gave a word that said that we will become a base church. So meaning that we will become a church that will have the resources to serve a region. And this is my heart shares with her this vision, because this is where we're going to. If we go and look at ourselves now, we will not see it. But I tell you, this is where we're going to end. And it all depends on how thorough and how good or how faithful we are in this season to determine how big the base church will eventually become. Then the second thing is that, the third thing was a word that came from White River. So White River congregation prayed for us. And then they said, they came out with a word that they saw a lot of people doing different skills, like the acrobats in a circus, where some of them would do a flick-flack, others will do horse riding, others will do the, trapeze acts. And then that word came through and said that we will be a church where there will be a lot of skills. And that God is going to bring people in here with exceptional skills and special skills that's going to work for us in our ministry in future. Then, Guy, the pastor of White River, then gave a word and said, what he sees in his word is, again, a team. We will become a strong team, and we will have to, we're going to go into this region as a team. We have to establish a team. And the second thing is, we will have to establish strong leaders. Rudolph came up with a word about 2 months ago. I have shared that with you when Elisha and the other prophets, when they wanted to build a place for them to stay, and the axe head came off, fell into the water, and then he threw a stick on that area, and the axe head floated. And then the word that came out to us from Rudolph was first of all that that God's going to expose all secrets that we're going to have, that we want to hide from other people. God is going to expose that, which is hidden. And then the second word, but he's going to restore in the same process, he's going to restore people's ministries. And that there's a lot of people that's got special ministries. And that he brought them from all areas to here, to Church Unlimited, and he's going to restore that ministries. So if we go and look at that, and we say, right, first of all, a healthy church. The second thing is the vision, where we're heading towards. And then of the words that came out, what is the important things? The first thing is team, relationship, fellowship. This is where we're going to concentrate on this season. The second thing is identifying skills and incorporating it in the church. Because if the word goes out and the Lord says, I'm sending people to you with special skills, that means he's sending people to prepare us to go out into to fulfill the vision that we got and to become a base church. So there's a lot of you with special skills that at this stage I'm sure is still not identified. There is a few that it's identified already, but we have to go and look. And we're going to have to say, why are you here in Church Unlimited? What is the skill that God's got in you that he wants to use for us to enlarge his kingdom? That's the second thing. The third thing is we're going to build a healthy church. I said love, functioning, and unity. The fourth thing, we're going to to give space for the ministries that's going to be restored. I look at you and I see a lot of you that has been in ministries before. And I know God is bringing you back here to restore your ministry. We can go and look at Willem and Santi. They came from Graaff-Reinet. They had a difficult time period. They were with us for 8 or 9 months, and now they're out. And their ministry is continuing now in Louis Trichardt, and he's been appointed there. And then, so those are the things that we're going to work on now in the next season, is to establish a culture in Church Unlimited in Hazyview, where we will be known as a collective. The second thing is the leadership. And God, in nearly every one of the words that came out lately, is the importance of leaders standing up in this congregation. And I want to just cover this as three persons: Moses, Jethro, and Gideon. So we look at Moses' life. So when God appeared to Moses in the burning bush, and they had a conversation, and then God said to Moses, you must go back to the Israelites and then go and tell them, I'm sending you. So he asked him, who are you? What must I tell them? Who is sending me? And he said, I am who I am. I am who I am. And that means, no matter when or where, he is there. If we go and look at Revelations, and says, I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I'm the Lord who is, who was, and will come again. So what he says to Moses, Moses, I am intimately connected to your life. Intimately. And I've planned your life up to here. So the day that he called Moses and to go and take the Israelites out of Israel, out of Egypt, which was one of the most important tasks that was done in the Old Testament, he was 80 years old. So Moses was 80 years old when that calling came on his life. And now you would think 80 years old. And then you go and say, I am who I am. I'm closely involved in your life. Although you were 80 years old, I prepared you for this time for 80 years. So if we go and look at Moses' life, you can actually go and look at the leadership training God gave him in four areas. First of all, the first part of his life was training. The second part of his life was preparation. The third part of his life was leadership. And the fourth part of his life was mentoring. So, let's go and see, start off with the training. When Moses was called by God, God said, I saw the Israelites, I hear their cries, and I have pity on them. Meaning that I hear them, and I'm going to send you to go and take them out of the land of Egypt. But when he said that to Moses, listen, Moses, I'm taking you out, he has already prepared him for 80 years for that specific task. You go and look at his life. When he became a prince in Pharaoh's household, a divine intervention when he was small. A divine intervention. God made it possible for him in that difficult circumstances when all the Hebrew boys that Pharaoh wanted them to be killed. He was made a prince. And the reason why he was made a prince is so that he could have a relationship with Pharaoh and his house. So that 80 years later, he would be able to go back and to go and have discussions with them. Because in those days, you were not allowed to approach Pharaoh as a normal man. So already, God had it in mind that in 80 years from now on, you're going to be in such a position that you will be able to go and talk to Pharaoh. That's one thing. The second thing, he was trained in leadership schools because in Alexandria at that stage in the Egyptian empire, which was the biggest on the earth at that stage, the best leadership training school was in Alexandria in Egypt. And there, all the princes went there because they were trained by leaders all over the world to train them to one day lead the country. And they were also networking with a lot of other people at that school because other countries also sent their princes to go and study there. So nowhere in the world could he have had better training than in the Pharaoh household at that leadership school. So that Moses that went there to go back to Pharaoh had a relationship with Pharaoh, but he also was an exceptional leader with training that he had for up to 40 years to that stage. So it was not just a Moses that was looking after the sheep. That was the background. That was the first 40 years. Then we had the incident where Moses killed a man and he had to escape. So he go down to Midian. At Midian, he sat at the well, and Jethro's 7 daughters come to drink for the flock to come and drink water, and the other guys harass them, and he stand up for them. And then the daughters go back to Jethro and tell him, listen, this is what happened, and he said, bring him here. I want to meet him. And then it says, he convinced him to stay. So when he ended up for the next 40 years with Jethro, Jethro was an exceptional man, an exceptional mentor. Because when in Exodus 18, when Jethro came and visited Moses there in Midian at that stage, it says, that he was pleased with what was happening with the Israelites, and that the Lord was so good with the Israelites. And then he offered a burnt offering and a meal. And that night, Aaron and all the leaders came to him and sat with him. So that was not just a normal person. So he is a priest. So Moses had been trained for 40 years in leadership skills. Then God prepared him the next 40 years in Midian under Jethro, who mentored him for 40 years. And he must have been an incredible mentor. So it's the best. It's the best. It's the best. So when Moses came at the age of 80 years old, and God called him, he has already been prepared for that time that he go out. So there was 2 divine interventions. The one was making him a prince, and the other one is for him to sit there next to that well, and then Jethro's daughters coming in, and then calling him to going and tell their dad. How coincidence is it that he was sitting there and Jethro's daughters was there? Again, a divine intervention to send him to Jethro's household for the next 40 years. Then I want to talk about Jethro. So if we look at Moses' life, we see, I am who I am. I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I'm the God who is, I'm the God who was, and I'm the God who will come. Meaning, I'm the God that's closely involved with your life. In his preparation, in his leadership role, God went before him every stage, every day. The last 40 years when he had to lead them, you can see multiple times that God went before him. And then eventually when he had to mentor Joshua as well, right up to his death, God was closely involved with him, developing him as a leader. So Yanni said, when he was here, Yanni Peter said that everything that happens to you happens for you. And then sometimes that we look at our life and there's certain things that we don't think work out. But meantime, God is using those things to prepare you in the leadership role that He wants you to use you one day in His kingdom. What is a leader? So we think that a leader is somebody who leads people. It's not. A leader is somebody that takes responsibility of a need or a task. And we have to change that thing in our mind that we think, you're in charge of 10, 20, or 30 people. It's not. Because there's certain needs that God needs you to go and fulfill. Certain tasks that God needs you to go and fulfill. And with that comes the responsibility. And when you take that responsibility of that which God requires from you, you are a leader. So this is Moses. The second one is Jethro. So Jethro is a mentor. Jethro looked he heard that Moses was there at the well. He sent for him and he convinced him to stay there for 40 years. So meaning what happened there was Jethro, being a priest and being walking with God, he must have realized this is a special person. This is really a special person that I have to invest my time in. So what he did is, the Holy Spirit told him, listen, I want you to invest in this man. And then he was obedient. And he did that. And sometimes when you're going to go in situations, in leadership roles, is that you need to mentor somebody else. Because God has put him on in your path so that you can prepare him for what He's got for that person in future. You don't know if you've got a Moses that you have to train for a season. Jethro didn't know at that stage what massive, massive impact Moses was going to have. But for 40 years, he was faithful. He was faithful in installing in him and spending time with him. He had such a wonderful relationship. When you go and look in Exodus 18, when Jethro went and joined Moses there at Midian, he came close to, and when Moses saw him coming there with his wife and his 2 sons, he ran out, bowed before him, and kissed him. So that's the one thing of Jethro. So Jethro was sensitive to the Holy Spirit. He identified Moses as somebody which God put in his path for him to mentor and to prepare. The second thing about Jethro is I would just like to go and read a piece for you from Exodus 18. So Jethro arrives there at the Israelite camp. He sleeps there the night. The next morning, he wakes up, and then it says, the next day Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, what is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit and judge, while all the other people stand around you from morning till evening? And Moses answered him, because the people come to me to see God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it's brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions. Moses' father-in-law replied, what you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to Him. Teach them His decrees, instruct them Show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what God has called you to do, but you're sitting there the whole day giving judgment from morning until evening, while all the other people are just standing around you. And he said to them then, but select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, 50, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter, because they will share it with you. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. And they served as judges from the people, for the people at all times. So the second thing that I want to mention under Jethro, the first one is to identify possible leaders, to be sensitive to the Spirit, and to invest in them. The second thing under Jethro is that sometimes you are spending a lot of your time and resources on a need that you identified that is not yours to do. And then it takes away what you're supposed to do. And we must be very, very careful sometimes, especially on that area, is that you see a need, you spend all your time on that need, and you don't get to that what God is calling you to do. You have to go and find out. You have to go and sit with God and say, God, what do you want me to do in this season, in this church? That God clearly showed you that. I'm sure that He will show you that. And that you don't just come and arrive here and go and fulfill a need that somebody else is supposed to fill. Then, He appointed leaders. He appointed them over 10, over 50, over 100, and over 1,000. And here there is a law that comes into place, and this is a law of increased authority. And I want to take you to Luke 19. In Luke 19, it's a king that the future king that's going away, and then he gives minas to the people, and then came back and asked them, what did you do with that which I've given you? So the first one said, then he sent for his servants to whom he had given the money in order to find out what they had gained with it. The first one came and said, Sir, your mina has earned 10 more. Well done, my good servant. His master replied, because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities. And the same happened with the one with one mina that brought back 5 minas. And then he said to those standing by, take this mina away from him, from the one who had the one that he buried, and give it to the one who had 10. The one has 10 more. So they said he already has 10, and he replied, I tell you, to everyone who has more will be given. But as for the one who has nothing, even what they have will be taken away. In Matthew 25, verse 23, it says, you have been faithful in a little, I will appoint you over much. This is the law of authority. You cannot jump from 10, like what they said, a leader over 1,000, leader over 150, 10. You can't jump from 10 to 1,000. You have to work from 10 to 50 to 100 to 1,000. But you have to be faithful. If you are faithful in that season, meaning you take the responsibility for the 10, and you take authority for that 10, and you've been faithful in that, God will then give you 10 more cities, meaning you will go to the 50, you will go to the 100, but you will not skip. If you can't show yourself faithful in 10, you will not be able to skip to 1,000, because you would not know what to go and do. And this is the rule of authority, the law of increased authority. So, For if you are faithful over little, God will reward you with much. It's so hard to see people that are excellent businessmen or whatever in that field. And then you go and look at their influence, and their influence stay at 10. Because leadership, and when he says, when I give you more, I give you a position of influence. So you take responsibility, you are faithful, I increase your influence. And this is how it works in the spiritual world. So now you get to a situation, this guy is an excellent businessman, but in the spiritual world, he's got very, very little influence. So God called you to be a leader in this church, and He called you to have influence. But your influence will develop as you show yourself faithful in smaller things, and it will increase and increase and increase. This is what God's got in mind for you. And then the last one that I want to talk to you about is Gideon. And I want to read Judges 6. And it says, the angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." That for me is an incredible, incredible greeting. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. So what does Gideon do when God said, I'm going to send you to go and rescue Israel from the Midianites? He said, no, I can't do that because I'm not from an important family. And then he asked him twice for a sign. So if you would think that is his nature, that is his natural way of thinking, and then God come and said to him, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. And that is one of the biggest problems that we got in the church, is that people don't think that they are leaders. They don't think that they can do it because they don't see how God sees them. They weren't a prefect at school, and then they went out of school, so they thought, I'm not a leader. And it's such a lie that the devil are telling the Christians today. So what do? We stand back. We're waiting for somebody else to take the lead. Meanwhile, God is saying to you, stand up. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. And then he says to him, when he went out, he says, and the Lord turned to him and said, go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? Go in the strength you have, rescue Israel. Am I not sending you? And this is how God sees you. This is how God sees every one of you. If there's prophecies that come out and say that we're going to have a lot of leaders, that we are going to have a lot of skillful people, why don't I see it? Why don't I see it? Why don't I see it coming through in this congregation? Because we need to have leaders in place before we can go and cross a Jordan and flood. So I'm asking you today, what is God telling you? What is He telling you? What do you bring to us? Because you must have special skills and you must be a leader. What is hindering it from us seeing it? So I'm going to just end off. I'm going to say to you again on the culture side, the words that came out with the emphasis on the leaders, with the emphasis on love, on the emphasis on unity, on the emphasis of skills. On a healthy church, love, functioning, and unity. That is what's going to happen. And that's where we have to get before we go out. If we don't have that here, if we don't establish that culture here, we're not going to be able to go out to that which God has in mind for us. And we have to be faithful in this season. That's the one thing. On the leadership. So the leadership, we got Moses. And Moses, God says, I am who I am. I am closely involved with you. I prepare you up to now. So if I say to you, the Lord is with you, valiant warrior, it means I've already prepared you to be a valiant warrior, but you don't see it. You don't see it because you listen to the world and there's a lot of setbacks in your life that happened and now you think that you can't do it. Let's sit back and wait for somebody else to go and do it. And Jethro identified, he listened to the Spirit, he identified that Moses is somebody sent to him to take care of and to invest in him. And not only that you invest in him in word, but also in skills. That's the second thing, to take a mentor role. Some of us has gone through different stages in lives, and you are far way down the road, and you see a young man coming up, a young man with potential. Get next to him and start taking him with you. We need to do this in our church. We need to do it. We don't know if we're going to bring a Moses through. And you're going to have to play that part. You're going to have to play that part of Jethro. Then we get the law of increased authority. 10, 50, 100, and 1,000. You will not go from 10 to 50 to 100 to 1,000 without being faithful in that season that God has placed you in, and to take that responsibility, and then God will increase your influence. He will increase, and that's why you're here. You are here to have influence in a region. That's what He's preparing you for. The fourth thing is, don't go and just fulfill a need because there is a need. Go and hear from God what He wants you to go and do. There's somebody else in to go and do that. He wants you to function in your gifts. He wants you to function in your skill. That's why there's a word that come out and say, I'm bringing people in with different skills. So if you're acrobat, don't go and try to ride a horse. And the other way around, also, both of them will get hurt at the end of the day. And then lastly, don't let the world and your past define you as a leader. Things that happened bad in the past, or the way that you think about yourself. God says to you, stand up, valiant warrior, go out in the strength that's in you, that I have placed in you. Even though you don't see it, I see it. And we need to go back to that stage and say, God, how do you see me? And if there's a lot of hurts that in my life that stole from me, let's go and address it. There's Carla and the ministries, and there's a lot of people here that can help you, that can pray with you, and that can come next to you and ask God to show you who you are and where He's going to take you. Because this is the most important point that I want to end off today is the devil come and steal our leaders with a thought of inadequacy. But I say to you now, you've already been prepared up to this stage by a God who says, I am who I am. I want you to function as a leader. I want you to put you in position of influence so that you can go out there and that you can go and declare my name in a region and not stay at 10. You have to go to 50, you have to go to 100, and you have to go to 1,000. Do you have the video ready for me? Can you just play this video for me, please, Lee? And I just want to just stand still for just one moment, and I don't just want to put attention on one person, but on Lee. Last year when I was in Mongolia, the Lord said to me, I must go and buy lights. I must go and get things ready for YouTube videos. And I thought it was for me to go and do that. So I bought the equipment last year, but I don't have time to do it. But now, with this year, so the Lord just laid on my heart more and more and more on the video side, that He wants to use video to go for us to get inroads into the region on social media. So I come here, I see Elizabeth, she's so excellent with social media. But now Lee is standing up. Now Lee is starting to do the media for us. We got Bongani there, who's brilliant with sound. I look at this, Pumlani, sorry. I look at this and I see, wow, that if God says, I'm going to use media for the church to get inroads. I see Elizabeth, I see Pumlani, and I see that He's lifting Lee up on that area. And that confirms to me that God has put you here just by mistake. You are here to drive this church over, or to take this church through into the next phase. I want to end off with this song of Isaiah by Simon Khorolskiy. And then I just want you to sit down and just listen to the words. And then at the end of this, I will then just close with a prayer. Lord, the whole earth is full of your glory. Holy, holy are you. Lord, and you say, whom shall I send? Whom shall I send? And I ask of you today, Lord, that you will declare your holiness to every one of us. And Lord, that we will stand up and say, send us, like in Isaiah 6. Send us, so that we can be your eyes, we can be your mouth, we can be your hands, we can be your body in AZView. Amen.